on the scene for WWE Money in the Bank. She is from the Daily Mirror. She is Narin Flanders joining us on the show. Narin, how you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Thank you for joining us the show. Thank you for joining us the show. See, I can't speak.
Yeah,
Thank you for joining us on the show today.
Really well. I think it's all downhill from here. I also feel like I'm going to help dial back the British cliches, which is quite good going, bearing in mind I actually am British. So we can dial back the taxis, dial back the buses. We'll all be fine.
What if we want to talk more about the buses?
Actually, we do like a bus in England, but yes. They have been shoehorned everywhere. Every poster that you see for Money in the Bank, there's a bus in it.
See, they did media on the buses too, didn't they?
I was not big enough to get invited into the bus, I would have you know. But it's okay. It's fine. I'll get over it. I'm here. This is way better than being on a bus, right?
It was probably just Alex McCarthy on the bus. It was just him, his own personal thing that he got to
be fair, he is a big name on British wrestling circles. So, he basically has his own bus. That's how it works.
He's the worst. Alex McCarthy's the worst. Can't stand that guy.
Terrible. It's already gone downhill. Look, we're 1 minute in. Come on.
Narin, easy question first off the bat. Just overall experience at Money in the Bank and overall thoughts on the show.
I absolutely loved it. I always was gonna though. I mean, I was 11 when SummerSlam 92 happened. My parents took me, and I will tell anyone that listens that the reason I am a 40-year-old woman that still watches wrestling is because I fell in love with it then. Like, it was just a formative experience of my childhood. I loved everything about it, and I had the merch and all that kind of crap as well. Everything was wonderful. So I have been waiting a long time for this, and I'm sorry, but the little pay-per-views that they tried to pitch in between SummerSlam 92 and here, they don't count. They're not the same. This is what we were waiting for. This is what we got, and they did it in pretty good style. I have a few little kind of minor moans, but overall very happy.
I am interested in those minor moans. Let's hear about that.
Wow, let's start with a negative. We're going well.
Yeah.
My main thing, I think, actually, and maybe it is just poor timing, because I think Clash at the Castle had the same thing, because they pretty much shut down NXT UK 2 weeks before Clash at the Castle happened. And I think the same with here. The thing that would be my moon on a stick wish list thing would be more British and Irish talent on these cards. I think that's the one thing that we really missed out on. I'm happy, we did have some big names, and that was great, and it was good Butch being in the ladder match. But bear in mind, Sheamus and Ridge Holland were on Smackdown. They kind of got to come in and be glamorous assistants when Butch went in. But they went around. Pretty Deadly were also on Smackdown. You have loads of people that came up from NXT, like JD McDonough, Alba and Isla, people like that didn't even get a look in. And I think that's a bit of a missed opportunity. And if I had one thing that I would say, that would be my wish list, would be a bit more kind of British talent and Irish talent getting a chance to kind of shine in front of the hometown crowd.
You asked about NXT Europe in the press conference, and Triple H was like, "Oh, the merger has kind of slowed things down." You're kind of put on the spot as Triple H looked for a female reporter there. It was all guys, and there
it was quite impressive though, because what had happened was I had pretty much lost my shit and shouted myself hoarse. So when we went in, they were like, "Where do you want to sit?" And I was like, "I'm going to sit right at the back and not ask anything because I can barely speak." And then at the point where he was like, "There must be a female journalist in here somewhere," and I looked around and was like, "Oh, there's not actually that many. Damn." In fact, I think it might just be me, and I'm right here. So of course, then I had to say something, but it was also the longest question in the world, and I was very croaky. So it went well.
You got an answer out of them. I mean, sometimes you don't get any type of answer.
Well, is that a funny thing though? Because I don't know if it's a British thing. But people were like, "Yeah, you really put him on the spot with that question." And I was like, I was trying to be polite. I didn't think I was being particularly, like this wasn't Watergate or anything. I was just like, "What's happening with my NXT Europe, please? Where are my guys? Like, this is what we want."
So, sorry. Go ahead. No.
I was like, well, he said the merger was going to slow things down, and that's the answer we got out of things. So I'll ask you now. Do you believe him? Do you think we're getting NXT Europe by the end of 2023?
I'm not sure we're getting it by the end of 2023. I would like to think it's still on the table. I think if nothing else, my reading of the situation is they know there is money to be made from all of these different territories, or from Puerto Rico, from Canada, from us, from Australia, if they can get the logistics of getting out there. They've got the money for it. It makes sense for them to have bases where they are finding talent, nurturing talent, and making them in the mold that they want them to be. So I think NXT Europe is a definite possibility. I'd just like it to be quicker. I'm an impatient woman, basically.
Have you been following the British independents for a while, or are you mostly just WWE centric in your fandom?
Mainly WWE centric, but that is mostly because right now I have kids and a full-time job and a limited amount of time. So I keep up with AEW a little bit. And I've seen a few progress shows in my time and stuff like that, but the indies in the UK are not my specialist subject, unfortunately.
Gotcha. I asked basically because you had mentioned the development of British talent. You mentioned NXT UK, and I don't think a lot of people would have thought about that. And that's why I really enjoyed the question that you asked Triple H.
I have a real soft spot for NXT UK generally. I think they were doing really good stuff and they were really exciting. And I think what people don't necessarily really recognize is, so just before lockdown, I live in a little town just outside of London, in Essex, which incidentally is where the Pretty Deadly Boys, or one of them, is from. And it's a very small town near a bunch of other really small towns. Just before COVID, I went to an NXT UK show in one of those, basically we call them leisure centres. I don't know if they're the same thing for you. It's like where basically kids go to learn to swim. Everything smells of chlorine and disappointment. You know, it's just all a bit cruddy. You wouldn't want to go there unless you had a real reason to be there, right? You know, those kind of places. They did an NXT UK show there where we saw Imperium, we saw Rhea Ripley, we saw, who else was on the card that night? We had Moustache Mountain, and I think then Pete Dunne might have been on there as well. Definitely Tyler Bate was, like, in this teeny tiny leisure centre. Like, you know, it was like a school gym. Like, we weren't sitting on chairs, we were sitting on like little benches that they'd rolled out for us all to sit on while we watched it. And they were incredible. And you just think, like, a little bit kind of further on, all of these people have gone from that to main roster excellence. And that's what NXT UK was, and fed into NXT main and all of that. Like, it's so important and it deserves so much more love and respect than anyone ever gave it, I think. And this is my hill I will die on, basically.
I get it. I really do. This is coming from a Canadian who, you know, shouts out from the rooftops about Canadian indies, and we've had wrestlers on here talk about, you know, a similar mindset. Before Jeremy gets to his next question, I got to ask, DDP Yoga instructor?
Yes, I am, and I'm very proud of it. Although I'm like, where have you got that from? Have you seen the embarrassing video?
Now I'm going to look for
it. I've mentioned the embarrassing video. That's worse. No, I used to be, when I had my kids, and even before I had my kids, I was very overweight. And I basically went to DDP because I've been a wrestling fan all this time. And I was like, oh, I need to do some weight. And then he came over to do a workshop thing. And I thought, well, I'm going to suck at yoga. Of course I am, because I can barely like walk, much less like stand on one leg and do yoga shit. But, you know, I'm intrigued to meet him. It'll be fun. And I'll have a funny story about how I fell over and landed on my ass in front of Dallas Page, right? And I went and I fell in love with it. And I ended up, I mean, I've put some on because, you know, it was COVID. We were all eating and drinking at home, right? But I lost about 100 pounds in the end. And I'm much fitter and all of that sort of stuff. And then I ended up doing the qualification, and now I teach other people. And I love it. I really do. Like, it's not, I like to call it shouty, grunty, punchy yoga. And that's what everyone needs in yoga. None of this, like, you know, sitting, staring at the ground, thinking about the nature of life. Like, it's shouty, grunty yoga. So I can recommend.
That's amazing.
I love it too.
You should be proud of that. That's, first of all, 100 pounds. That's no easy task. And on top of that, to get the certification, that's a big deal. Congratulations. Seriously. Thank
you so much. That's lovely.
you take it up for the touchdown, the diamond, and then bring
You
it.
see, this is the thing. Everyone goes, "Oh, I've vaguely heard of it." Yeah, if you're a wrestling fan and you've been around long enough, you've checked out those videos, of course.
Oh
you have.
yeah, I used to do DDP yoga, and then I had kids of my own, and I didn't got time for that no more. Just multiple running around. That keeps me.
Yeah,
That's
but
what keeps
that's
me in
why
shape.
I took it up, because I couldn't, after I had my second baby, like I couldn't lift him. Like my back was completely buggered. So I was like, I need to do something, and that's what I did. So yeah, I love it.
It is great. If you've not checked out DDP Yoga, everyone should check it out if you want to get into that sort of thing. But it will keep you fit, and I know a bunch of wrestlers swear by it and everything as well. Circling back to Money in the Bank,
What we
and
were
let's talk.
actually talking about.
Yes. No, the DDP Yoga stuff was a nice little side mission there. I loved it. The John Cena promo. You're in the chat. You won't forget when everything he said in 2008. Now he comes out here and he says WrestleMania coming to London. I don't want you to call John Cena a liar, but how much is John Cena lying?
I was all in for it. I lost my mind when he came out. I was giddy. But the thing that made me laugh about all of it is, you know, if you are a WWE fan who's been coming to these shows for years and years and years, you know what used to happen was you go to these fans, and like we love a chant, we love a shout in England, like we really do. So these kind of shows were always mainly children and me going, "Let's go Cena," and then everyone else screaming, "Cena sucks," like the whole time. That's what you do, right? That's the way of the world. Like he looked completely mind blown when he came out, and we were all like, "It's him, hooray, yay," because that is the only time he has ever had that response in England, and it might be the only time ever again. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I heard what you guys were talking about it and largely agree with you. But my take on it, I think, is it will depend very much on what happens with AEW later in the summer. Because I think if AEW is a success, there's more chance that they will pull the button on a WrestleMania London. Because yeah, you know what? Yeah, you had Wembley Stadium, big whoop. We're doing Wembley Stadium for 2 nights, and it's going to be bigger, better than anything you could ever imagine. So I think British wrestling fans generally are excited about AEW coming to London. I think it's a big deal. Lots of people watch it that don't watch WWE because it's free to air in the UK. So you can watch it without paying for the network or anything else. But even if you're a WWE fan, I think you might have a bit of an interest in it going well, because I think if it goes well, there's more chance this might come to fruition. But that said, the London government is never going to pay any money for anything. So if that's what we're holding out for, then, you know, we've probably got more chance of WrestleMania Paris, and we'll all get the train over.
That's actually not a bad idea. They're going to do the Eiffel Tower as the A's. It's going to be great.
To be fair, you could do the Stade de France, and what would be good about it is the one perk of somewhere over this side is think of all the European fans that would go to that. Like it would do very, very well, I think. I guess the issue is there are logistic issues for the UK anyway. With France, it's a little bit further. It's also French, so you've got a language thing that makes it all a little bit trickier. So maybe it's less likely, but I wouldn't say it was off the table. But yeah, basically very excited by John Cena, and then went into the press conference and was like, well, they've dialed that back quite a lot, haven't they, from there? So we will see, but I remain optimistic.
Enjoy the 2-night Royal Rumble from Wembley Stadium.
Do you know what? I have a soft spot for Rumble. I'm okay with that. Like, you know, it's a good show, isn't it? Like, you know, and if you gave me 2 nights, like, I really wouldn't grumble.
Fair enough. Did you attend Smackdown as well?
Yes.
You did. Was there anything notable? Was there anything that really jumped out to you from this particular Smackdown than others maybe you watched or have seen in the past?
It was it was a good Smackdown. I think the crowd were very excited about just the atmosphere. The whole weekend was great. I think the crowd turned up on Friday ready to really rock with it, which helped kind of lift it, because it's always a bit hard, isn't it? Because you always know, like, the Smackdown before a big show is always going to be the go home show, where basically nothing much is going to change, nothing much is going to happen, and basically they're just praying no one gets injured, right? So it can sometimes be a bit of a damp squib. But yeah, it was exciting. I think what I found interesting was people, I think there's definitely a British sensibility to some of the people that we like that you guys maybe don't rate so much, or some of the people that you really like that we're less keen on. And I was surprised at Charlotte did not get a very warm reception, which surprised me. I don't know, is that a feeling that you guys get your side of the pond as well? Like,
You got to blame Wrestle Talk for that.
I really? Is that what's done it? You've ruined everything.
Wrestle Talk did that. No, I'm not gonna. I think that the ardent wrestling fan, the hardcore wrestling fan, have it in their minds that Charlotte ruins everything. And my feeling is that a lot of American or just North American wrestling fans are not as online as others might be who are attending these shows. And as a result, I just to put this in the AEW world for a second, they're going to be in Regina, Saskatchewan for AEW Collision next week. And I said, this is the true test of how CM Punk is seen outside of major markets like Chicago and Toronto and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Similar situation. You know, I would have been surprised if John Cena showed up in Toronto and wasn't booed, but that's what happened in London. So again, the Charlotte kind of comparison there, I do think kind of the hardcore wrestling fans who maybe are in the UK, maybe already have it in their head that like Charlotte ruins everything, or they like to boo her because she's such a better heel.
Yeah, no, she absolutely is that. But I'm not sure that they were necessarily booing her. I think everyone was just a bit like, oh, you're back. Okay. Like it was kind of, because that's the thing, isn't it? I've spoken to a few people in the run up to Money in the Bank. LA Knight and Bailey particularly were talking about it, because we are known as crowds who are a little bit contrary, I think it's fair to say. Like, we like our people and we will just, you know, we're also very sarcastic, and therefore if we like you, that usually means we'll give you shit like that. It's kind of a love thing. Oh, am I allowed to swear? Because I think I've been swearing quite fulsomely.
Hell yeah, you're good.
Okay, we're all good. But yeah, so I think sometimes it doesn't matter whether you're booing or cheering. But what was notable about the Charlotte match is people were just like, okay. But the other side of it is I think Sheamus got a really great reaction, but I think it's an oversight that he wasn't on the Money in the Bank card somewhere. I know it was a stacked card. I know in hindsight they had to keep a big chunk of the space for John Cena, but at the same time, like, you know, Sheamus came out of Clash at the Castle with Gunther with basically, I would argue, match of the year, pretty much. So to go from that to we're in London, everybody loves him, everyone wants to see him, and he's on SmackDown and that's your lot, felt like a bit of an oversight. But the other side of that was it made SmackDown special. SmackDown was more than just a go-home show. There was some really good stuff on there.
Being part of the media for these events, Joel Pearl was on here earlier. I don't know if you saw it, burying media members for wearing. I mean,
I didn't see that. I thought he seemed like such a nice man, but that was clear.
No, absolutely not. People,
wow.
Yeah, people think Joel Pearl is nice because he's Canadian. It's like, oh, all the Canadians.
Do you know what? That's what it is. Nice. When I logged on, I was like, oh, he seems friendly, and also every Canadian I've ever met has been lovely. But now you are the exception that proves the rule. Look what you've done.
Yeah, he sucks. He's the worst.
I haven't even listened to criticism.
He was burying everybody in the media for wearing, you know, a WWE shirt or a WWE hat. When you are part of these media events, I don't know how many you've been part of, but like, what's kind of your mindset and mentality when you have to do all this stuff?
You will notice me. In that press conference, I was wearing my Edge t-shirt. But I was wearing my Edge t-shirt because, as far as I was concerned, I had filed all my copy, done all my interviews, and me and my husband were going to lose our minds at Money in the Bank. So that was why I was skulking happily at the back, going, well, I'm not going to be on camera and I'm not going to ask any questions and it doesn't matter. And then there you are with people going, Edge, Naz, really? That's like who your t-shirt choice was? But generally, I try to kind of turn up in a way that doesn't look very markish, because it is a bit hard, isn't it? Like, we all love wrestling, because I think it's fair to say, leap in if you think I'm wrong, but I think wrestling journalism is only really done by people who love wrestling. Even if they don't love all of wrestling, they love part of it and might hate watch the rest. Like, you're not doing this for the money and the fame and the adoration and, you know, the Pulitzer, are you? You're doing it because...
I'm doing it for the first thing that you mentioned.
Who are you?
There's none of it, but I'm trying to make it, okay?
But it is that thing, isn't it? Like, everyone's doing it because they love it, and it's just trying to be professional and ask questions that still feel like questions. Although I was talking to someone about this actually at the press junket bit, because I find the press junkets really hard, because it's basically like wrestler speed dating. So you're in this room and they literally wheel them in and it's like, you've got 3 minutes, go. And then like there's a PR there with their phone kind of counting it down, and then at 3 minutes they're like, and that's it, you're done and you're off, and you're waiting for the next person. I hate that, because I usually, if I do like one of these Zoom call interview things, I have my question that I'm like, that's possibly the question that's going to turn the interview or piss off the PR. So that's my question that I get to at the end. So I've still got something, even if it all goes a bit pear-shaped, I'll be all right, I can write it out. But that's my, I've been talking to you for 15 minutes and now I'm going to slide in the question that you may or may not answer. I can't do that in 3 minutes. I can work quick. I can't work that quick. Like it's a hard job.
Did you want to punch Alex McCarthy when he asked about Drew McIntyre?
No, I don't ever want to punch Alex McCarthy.
Why?
I have to say, like, I'm going to say something maybe a bit controversial now, but there are some really great people doing amazing wrestling writing in the UK. And two people who are getting it very mainstream are Alex McCarthy and Alistair McGeorge, who between them write for the Daily Mail and the Metro. And I don't want to punch either, and they're irritatingly enough, they are thoroughly nice, very professional, really good guys who do great things. So not them. Although he did get on the bus, so maybe I'll kick him in the shins for the fact that he got on the bus.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
That's your scoop, like grudgingly violent, but not full aggression. How about that?
That's fair. I'd go full violence.
Was
Sean Ross Sapp able to fit in over there? Like he was bragging that he's like part British now, and
he was actually, he really was. I managed to blunder into meeting him in a way that afterwards I was like, oh God, this probably looks a bit lame. Because I walked in and they were like, right, all the people with the video cameras in the press junket, you've got a spot, put your camera on the spot, you stay there. And then they were like, press people, go find a video camera to stand behind. You know, your print, like just stand behind the video camera, you can kind of leap in between them. So I walked into this room and I was just like, you know, video cameras as far as the eyes can see. And I was looking there going, there are a lot of guys here with video cameras, none of whom I know. And then there's one woman with a video camera. Right, well, clearly I'm going to go and stand with that one woman. So I went and I stood next to this lovely woman, had a great chat. Turned out she was American. It was all brilliant. And then about 10 minutes later, her husband popped up and it was Sean Ross Sapp. And you're like, oh, hi. So there he was. And I think the reason he fitted in so well is because his wife is just a wonderful woman, basically.
Yes.
Wonderful.
She's a delight. She really is. But the thing was, I was chatting away to her and having a lovely time. And then he popped up and I was like, oh, hi, who are you? Who do you write for? What do you do? and then he was like, you know, with the, because we've all got our little labels with our things on it. His was kind of down by his shirt and he just kind of brushed it down. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm Sean Ross Sapp. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I know who you are. But his wife, lovely woman.
We have a similar story for that, because when I met Sean in 2019 in Toronto for SummerSlam, his wife was with him. And I ended up making nice and making friends with his wife. While he was off talking to all the other fans, her and I were just kind of chatting it up. And I was like, she is a lovely woman. She is very, very sweet. And yeah, so I'm pretty sure that she is the reason why I ended up getting any work here on this website.
Oh, okay. So that's ruined my second question, because I was like, you were saying you were having a nice chat with her. When you say that, were you chatting her up?
No.
Like, but clearly you weren't, because you're now working for Fightful. So whatever it was, you stayed the right side of the line. Well done, you.
Plus, I was about to get married at the time, and no, I was very much making friends.
Okay, that sounds worse.
Behind every terrible journalist here at Fightful, like myself and Sean Ross Sapp, is a great woman who puts up with us. And that's basically the moral of the story here. Yeah. Narin, we appreciate you joining us. Any closing comments? Let everybody know where they can find you at.
I am on Twitter at NK Flanders, and it is like the Simpsons character. I'm married into it. I had a surname no one could spell before. Now they can, but everyone thinks I'm the female wife of Ned Flanders who got murdered. So, you know, swings and roundabouts. I write for the Daily Mirror and My London and lots of other different titles. But yes, and this has been a pleasure. It's been really fun, guys.
The pleasure is
all
ours. Thank you.
Yes.